Nowhere else on earth could a kid with a stutter, from modest beginnings in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and Claymont, Delaware, one day sit behind the resolute desk in the Oval Office as President of the United States. But here I am. That's what's so special about America. We're a nation of promise and possibilities, of dreamers and doers, of ordinary Americans doing extraordinary things. I've given my heart and my soul to our nation, like so many others. I've been blessed a million times in return with the love and support of the American people. I hope you have some idea how grateful I am to all of you.
President Biden just spoke, and we still don't have any answers on what took place on the day that they tried to take out former President Trump during the Butler, Pennsylvania rally. How does that even happen? I know I haven't really talked about it. This is a channel where I'm going to be talking about a lot of different things that I want to talk about that's not necessarily related to interactive gaming. I definitely want to talk about if the hearing situation was that whole hearing was interesting with Pat Fallon going at the former director. Was he justified in that? And even when we talk about the body cam footage, we need answers from the individuals who are supposed to have all the answers, right? I just find all these things interesting. So let's start from the very top. We still don't have answers about the attempt on former President Trump when he had the rally at Butler, Pennsylvania, right? So so depending on where you get your news, I just want to say this. Depending on where you get your news, it's always interesting how, there's going to be a place that is a center. There's a place that's going to be on the left. And there's going to be a group that's going to be on the right when it comes to how information is given out and how you consume it. And the questions that you ask about those things is going to frame, right, your worldview when it comes to how this stuff happens in the political sphere. I am not, okay, a political anything. I just find all this stuff interesting because it seems like we're in this house of cards world. That's what it seems like to me, where all these things are happening and it's like, well, I can't believe this just happened, right? Who attempts to assassinate a former president in broad daylight? Again, right? Like, how do we even get here? And as far as the rounds, how many rounds were shot? Why was this person allowed to scale a building? Why isn't a lot of people asking all the questions that are tough? And if they are asking those questions, I'm sure they are, right? I'm sure they are. Why are we not getting answers to those questions, right? And I have my own thoughts on it, and my thoughts are this. I think that if you have the answers and you're saying you need the answers, it's just a misdirection tactic. Because if you already have the answers, why are you asking for answers that you already have? I find that extremely interesting, right? Because if you know that you're going to be protecting a subject at a particular event, especially when it comes to things like this, these individuals, right, they're there days in advance to make sure every single spot that needs to be secured is secured for the subject that they're protecting, right? So in this case, it was former President Donald Trump was speaking at a rally and he was not fully protected. How does someone have, what is it, 150 yards, a straight line shot to a former president speaking at a rally? That just doesn't make sense when you think about it. That should be impossible, right? It should be impossible for someone to have that line of sight, for someone to be prepared to do that, for someone to shoot so many shots. How do we even get there? So that whole thing to me is just a house of cards, okay? That someone knows, someone has to know that something like this was going to be attempted, right? So a couple of other things, because I saw some other conversations where actual snipers were reviewing the moments where President Trump was exposed, right? Of course, the iconic shot that you've seen, I'm sure, he's exposed, and that is a perfect opportunity for a sniper to take another shot, right? But if the sniper that was supposed to take the shot is no longer here, then they can't. But that is even interesting in and of itself, right? So I've seen a couple of videos of former soldiers speaking about it, and it's just interesting their perspective. It's between incompetence and they almost don't want to say staged. I just find it very, very interesting. So we still don't have any answers to that, and we probably never will, because if the person on the inside is the one that orchestrated this particular event, so those answers will always be sealed, and then we have other things that come up, other events that come up, so we can focus on those events instead of asking the questions about this major event that is probably going to be in the history books to come. So there's that. Okay, so there's that. So we're probably never going to get those answers. I think that's where we are with this. We're probably never going to get the answers with that particular event in and of itself. So that's interesting. So let's talk about Biden for a second. Was that really Biden? I don't know. In this particular speech that we just got, of course, we are based on how we've been briefed. Okay, as we the people, we understand that Biden is not well. He exits out. He says that he wants Kamala to be the next, person to run. The next convention is going to be in August, from what I understand, and it's just a very, very interesting time that we're living in right now. But I definitely want to share some clips. The first clip I want to share is of President Biden just speaking, and I'm curious, do you believe that that's him speaking right now?
Alongside the busts of Dr. King and Rosa Parks and Cesar Chavez. When Ben Franklin was asked, as he emerged from the convention going on, whether the founders have given America a monarchy or republic, Franklin's response was, a republic, if you can keep it. A republic, if you can keep it. Whether we keep our republic is now in your hands. My fellow Americans, it's been the privilege of my life to serve this nation for over 50 years. Nowhere else on earth could a kid with a stutter, from modest beginnings in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and Claymont, Delaware, one day sit behind the resolute desk in the Oval Office as President of the United States. But here I am. That's what's so special about America. We're a nation of promise and possibilities, of dreamers and doers, of ordinary Americans doing extraordinary things. I've given my heart and my soul to our nation, like so many others. I've been blessed a million times in return with the love and support of the American people. I hope you have some idea how grateful I am to all of you. The great thing about America
is this him? Do you believe this is him?
Is here. Kings and dictators do not rule. The people do. History is in your hands. The power is in your hands. The idea of America lies in your hands. We just have to keep faith, keep the faith, and remember who we are. We're the United States of America, and there's simply nothing beyond our capacity when we do it together. So let's act together, preserve our democracy. God bless you all. May God protect our troops. Thank you.
Okay, so after watching that, do you really believe that that's President Biden? I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it's not, but it's interesting to see his cadence is very, what's the word I'm looking for? It's more natural than things that we've seen in the past. So I think that's another conversation that's happening with this particular speech. Usually he's looking at a teleprompter. Everyone says that he always looks at a teleprompter in that particular setup. I believe most presidents look at a teleprompter in that particular setup. So there's that. So, but in light of everything that's been going on, we are wondering if that's really him. And I think that's a fair question. That's a fair question. Even in the recent Kamala speech, I don't remember exactly what was taking place in that particular speech, but you can hear that she had a word that sounded like recording, even though that conversation was supposed to be live. But that slip in that conversation when she was presenting is very telling about how we're being fed information from that camp and the other camp too. Like I'm not on a particular side here. I'm just saying all of it is interesting. All right. So there's that. Next thing I want to talk about real quick is the situation that took place at the hearing. Do you believe that some people will call it a roast, was it valid? Was it warranted by, I believe, Fallon, right? Was it warranted for this roast to take place, this monologue towards the former director? What was it crazy? Was it bold? Was it insane? But one thing that I believe was really interesting in that entire monologue is the recreation of what took place when the assassination attempt took place, right? In that conversation. Take a listen.
I own an AR-15, and last time I shot it one time my whole life. It was 6 years ago. That is until Saturday, where we recreated the events in Savoy, Texas. We recreated what happened in Butler. I was lying prone on a sloped roof at 130 yards at 6:30 at night. And I knew that he had a scope. I didn't know what kind, red dot or magnified. So I shot 8 rounds from both. You know what the result was? 15 out of 16 kill shots. And the one I missed would have hit the president's ear. That's a 94% success rate. And that shooter was a better shot than me. It is a miracle President Trump wasn't killed. Corey Comparatore life is over because that damn shooter made it on the roof. And it wasn't the roof that was dangerous. It was a nut job on top of the roof. You know what else is dangerous? I believe your horrifying ineptitude and your lack of skilled leadership is a disgrace. Your obfuscating today is shameful. And you should be fired immediately and go back to Garden Doritos.
So now it seems like when you hear that, and you hear that a person, and I believe there's a term for that, where they go to these hearings and they're not necessarily answering questions. And it's like, you have the answers to the questions, but for whatever reason, you cannot answer these questions. So he goes off and he says he recreates this particular moment with an AR-15 that he only shot once, recent, right? Shot attempts in the recreation process. But prior to that, it was a year since he shot or whatever. I don't know, take that for what you will. And gets recreated that particular moment, and exact shots are done, and he only missed one from the same amount of yards. And I think that's very telling. Like, if you only miss once and try to recreate with not necessarily the same scope, I'm not going to say that, but with a scope, not knowing what the scope was, according to what he was saying in that particular video, recreates that tragic moment, right? Because people got hurt and people lost their family members as well. And it's like, this event was so then you begin to ask other questions, or at least I'm asking these questions. Was the miss the actual event? Because if an AR can be that accurate within the 130, 150 yard, that range, if it could still be that accurate, then you begin to wonder if the shooter, from what I understand, not sure if this is accurate or not, was going to a firearms, group or whatever those communities are where you can, just go and just not necessarily range. What do you call those communities? I know there's a name for them. A club, right? Let's just say a firearms club, right? If he was proficient, then he could be proficient at the actual miss. If he was really a targeted, like special shot of a person, right? Then he could orchestrate the miss and then do the other shots. And then we would call it what we're calling it now: an assassination attempt gone wrong, right? But there's other sides that are saying, well, that's not necessarily the case. But I don't know. I just want to know where you stand with that. Again, I believe all that stuff is house of cards at this stage in the game. And I definitely want to talk about more of this crazy, crazy world that we're living in. So this is a place where I want to talk about what I want to talk about. And if you are looking at this stuff and you're like, this is crazy. I agree, which is why I think you should definitely check out 12 Rules for Propaganda. These rules do not change. And one of the things that is, when you look at the first rule, it deals with emotional manipulation. And if you are caught up in that realm, then you may fall into the other 11 rules. These rules are global. They're not necessarily, they don't apply to a particular season or a particular age. These rules are evergreen in nature, and definitely check out 12 Rules for Propaganda, and you'll see exactly what I mean. It is insane when you actually look at the history of how these things have been used for individuals to be coerced into agreeing on something or subscribing to a particular thought.